Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, IAAO Designations, Review and Reveal. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items about how to participate in today's event. To ensure that we have an optimal learning environment, all attendees have been muted upon entry. Today's webinar may prompt questions from our audience, and we encourage those questions to be sent in. This can be done by using the chat box in the lower right-hand section of your screen. When sending in questions, please select Host and Presenter from the drop-down menu. This will ensure that those questions are sent to the right people and we can get them answered for you in a timely manner. Our presenters will try their best to address your questions during the presentation. However, if you do not find your answer you were hoping for, you may always contact myself or the presenters following the presentation by replying to the follow-up emails. Additionally, if you experience any technical issues during today's webinar, please again use the chat box in the control panel and our tech support will attempt to troubleshoot the issue. The presentation today will be followed by an email containing information about the presentation, as well as the presentation is going to be added to our YouTube channel. We will share more on that once the video is posted. With all that said, let's get things started. Today we welcome Tracy Drake, Brad Fowler, Paul Humble, and Donna VanderVries. This panel of professional designation subcommittee members come ready to go over requirement alternatives and equivalences, as well as discuss in detail the new IAAO designation. Please sit back and enjoy the information. And now I will turn it over to our presenters. Take it away, guys.
Good afternoon. I'm Donna VanderVries. I'm the Equalization Director for Muskegon and Newaygo counties in Michigan. We assess for 12 units within both counties. Like most assessors I know, I didn't grow up wanting to be an assessor. I fell into the profession working in a CPA firm as a CPA and an attorney in a large law firm. That happened to me almost 27 years ago, and I've been assessing ever since. I proceeded to attain designations, first in Michigan as a Michigan Master Assessor, and then I decided to get my IAAO designations, the AAS first, then the CAE, and I'm currently a PPS candidate. I'm a strong advocate of our designation programs as a lifelong learner who believes that the more you know, the more places you'll go, and IAAO designations will help you go places. And I think this program will give you a highlight of our program. Professionalism is something our designations do. To fairly and equitably assess property for tax purposes, you have to have a high level of mass appraisal skills to estimate value, as well as you have to defend those values before tribunals and various review authorities, so you need to be able to appraise property on a single property appraisal basis. What IAAO has done is develop and implement a program of professional designations that our purpose is to increase the professional competence of assessment personnel through education. What the professionalism objectives are to raise standards of the profession, attain recognition of the assessment profession by government authorities and the public. We have to work for the government and we report to the public. And we gain for designated members recognition as qualified, objective, unbiased appraisers and administrators of a system for ad valorem tax purposes. What this designation can do for you? Well, first of all, you can show your qualifications, your experience match with our world-class education. Also, it gives you recognition of your peers, other professionals, and the public. It also provides you with increased confidence. The more education and the more knowledge you have, knowledge is power. So you have confidence through education, achievement, and you get a peer network through our courses and our programs. Also, career advancement and enhancement. It can help you in hiring, promotion, and salary decisions. The designations we have, there are 6 that we're going to talk about today. The CAE, RES, our new MAS, the CMS, AAS, and the PPS. And we will go through each of these in detail. All of the designations we have 3 common requirements. First of all, you have to be an IAAO member in good standing. You also have to complete a 15-hour use PAP and IAAO 171, which is IAAO Standards and Ethics, and you have 5 years to complete all the requirements. The first designation we're going to talk about is the Certified Assessment Evaluator, the CAE. And we're going to talk about the educational requirements first. This is our premier designation. It shows you have the highest level of education and experience in residential and commercial real property appraisal and tax policy. Anyone who holds or wants to hold a senior position should have a CAE. And the education requirements for this are as follows. First, you have Fundamentals of Real Property Appraisal, which is IAAO 101. IAAO 102 is Income Approach to Value. You also need Income Approach to Value 2, which is IAAO 112. IAAO 400 is Assessment Administration. And then you can choose between 311 and 312, one being Residential Modeling and the other 312 being Commercial Modeling. In addition to the courses, you have projects required for the CAE. The projects, one being a residential project, and one being a commercial project. One project has to be a property demonstration narrative appraisal report, and one project may be a case study examination. The requirements in addition to this, as far as education, experience, and examination, are as follows. Currently, it requires a bachelor's degree, but there are alternatives which will be talked about further in the presentation. Additionally, you have to have 5 years of experience in property appraisal or assessment administration. Finally, after you've completed all requirements, you take an 8-hour comprehensive exam. Our next designation is the Residential Evaluation Specialist. And the educational requirements for this are Fundamentals of Real Property Appraisal, Course 101, Course 102, Income Approach to Value. Course 300 is Fundamentals of Mass Appraisal, and Course 311 is Residential Modeling. And this designation is for somebody who is well practiced in appraising a wide range of residential property. It shows you're proficient and competent in valuing residential real property. You have a project required for this designation. Your choice between a demonstration narrative appraisal report on a single property or a case study examination. Finally, you have education, experience, and a final examination. Currently, it requires an associate degree. We'll talk about alternatives later in the program. And it requires 3 years of experience in appraising residential real property. Finally, after you've done everything else, you have a 4-hour comprehensive examination. Our next designation we'll discuss is the Assessment Administration Specialist. And this is for someone who has expertise in administering various functions in the property tax. Those are like administering the tax, administering the office, and tax policy. Course requirements for this are as follows. 101, Fundamentals of Real Property Appraisal. 102, Income Approach to Valuation. 400 is Assessment Administration. 402 is Tax Policy. And then we have a 300 level course selective on Mass Appraisal, and our new 300 level courses count. One project is required. You have a choice between 3 different options for this project. You have an Assessment Administration Case Study Exam, an Assessment Administration Research Project, or Evaluation of a Jurisdiction's Assessment Practices. So you can choose between these 3 options. However, most people choose the case study examination. As far as education and experience and the examination, currently it requires a high school degree, 3 years of experience in the assessment field, and finally, after all the other requirements are complete, it's a 4-hour comprehensive examination. Okay, our next designation is the Cadastral Mapping Specialist, or the CMS. It's for someone, it shows competency in mapping to support value of property for tax purposes or administration and tax policy. So anybody who produces maps and images to support assessing should possess this designation. The requirements are 101, which is Fundamentals of Real Property Appraisal. Course 600 is Principles and Techniques of Mapping. And 601 is Cadastral Mapping Methods and Applications. After that, you have a project required too, an 8-hour case problem on cadastral mapping. Finally, as far as education, experience, and examination, it currently requires a high school degree. You need 3 years of experience in mapping, and then you have a 4-hour comprehensive examination following completion of all the other requirements. Okay, the next designation I'm going to discuss is a personal property specialist. This is for someone who's an expert in valuing personal property. The course requirements are Fundamentals of Real Property Appraisal, Course 101, 102, the Income Approach to Valuation, Course 500, Assessment of Personal Property, plus you have an additional 40 hours of electives on personal property. You have a project required, which is either a personal property demonstration appraisal or an 8-hour case study examination. And finally, it currently requires an associate degree. However, you can hear about alternatives later in the presentation. You need 3 hours of experience in appraising or administering personal property valuation systems. And finally, at the end of that, you have a 4-hour comprehensive examination following the completion of all other requirements. And I'm going to hand it off. I will look through some of the questions and try and address them later. And I'm handing this off to Paul Hummel, who's going to go with the MAS.
Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Humble, and I work for the Polk County Assessor's Office here in Des Moines, Iowa. I've been here since 1993 as a residential deputy assessor. Prior to that, I worked in the Johnson County Appraiser's Office in Olathe, Kansas, and I started my career there back in 1987. I've been a member of IAAO since 1988, and I currently hold both the RES and the AAS designations. IAAO's newest designation is the MAS, which is the Mass Appraisal Specialist. The MAS designation is designed to target the strengths and the competencies of IAAO's Mass Appraisal practitioners. The MAS designation represents professionalism and competency in a wide range of matters covering mass appraisal theories, mass appraisal techniques, and applications. I'm going to review real quick the requirements to earn the MAS, and we'll start off with the educational requirements. Course 101, Fundamentals of Real Property Appraisal, and Income Approach to Valuation, Course 102. These are basic appraisal educational courses that anyone in an assessor's office should complete as an appraiser. The 300 level courses, Fundamentals of Mass Appraisal, 331, Mass Appraisal Practices and Procedures, 332, Modeling Concepts, and 333, Modeling Application. These 300 level courses demonstrate both the evaluation and the technical skills necessary for today's more advanced mass appraisal practices. Mass appraisal Specialist. Besides the educational component, we do have a project that has to be completed. There are 3 project options available to choose from. One is a demonstration narrative appraisal report on a universe of residential properties. We also have a demonstration narrative appraisal report on a universe of income-producing properties. And the last project, a guided demonstration narrative appraisal report on a universe of properties. The last project, the guided demonstration, this option is currently in development by IAAO, and we're looking to have it available sometime in 2018. I'd like to add at this point that those that pursue the MAS early on are pioneers. That we're kind of going into new territory, and that is a specialist designation focused on practitioners. We would expect that those who apply early for candidacy and for the MAS will be mainly those that already write these types of reports in their everyday course of work. So as the MAS designation program grows, IAAO will be able to better accommodate those who wish to, say, learn as they go, and the guided demonstration report can greatly assist them with that process. The Mass Appraisal Specialist, Education, Experience, and Examination. Currently, it does require an associate's degree, but there are alternatives, and that will be coming up as part of our presentation here. It also requires 3 years of experience in the mass appraisal of real property, and a 4-hour comprehensive examination is required following the completion of all of the other requirements. What I would like to announce now is that I'm proud to announce that IAAO is now accepting candidacy applications for the MAS. So get your applications in, and hopefully you'll be on your way to earning IAAO's newest designation. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Brad Fowler.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brad Fowler. Started in tax assessment back in 2005. Worked as a residential appraiser for 6 years at the Davidson County Tax Office, which is a smaller jurisdiction here in North Carolina. And subsequent to that, have become the real property manager in Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, handling all the commercial property here. I, like Paul, hold my RES and the AAS designation, and I'm also a certified IAAO instructor. What I want to talk about just a little bit, and my portion is fairly short here, are the degree alternatives. When we talk about the degree alternatives, it's important to understand the history behind these alternatives. When the designation program was made available, degrees were not always a requirement. But then, as part of the Appraisal Foundation, the IAAO found it necessary to keep pace with some of the requirements of these alternate designation programs. This led to the creation of the degree requirements that we have and still have. At that time, though, there was a huge influx of folks who put in application for professional designation because of these requirements, and they may not have had the degree and needed to get their application in so they could still qualify to get these professional designations. Subsequently to that, the amount of candidacy applications fell off following the implementation of the degree requirements. So we as the PDS met, the Professional Designation Subcommittee, we met and realized that many qualified, highly qualified men and women were being left out of the program due to just not having a college degree. For an example, I personally worked with a gentleman who had 10 years of experience, no college degree, very well versed in mass appraisal, and wanted to get his designation. But without his degree, at that certain point in time, he was unable to. So the PDS came along with the blessing of the executive board, established a few alternatives now that you can use to still attain your professional designations. First one we'll talk about is for the CAE. Obviously, if you hold a bachelor's degree, that is enough. But if you don't, you can have 10 years of experience in appraisal or assessment admin, or 30 semester hours in select subjects, or a combination of both. For the RES, the MAS, and the PPS, there's a high school diploma plus 7 years experience, 21 semester hours in select subjects, or a combination of both. This next slide really shows the degree requirement alternatives. It really shows what you have to do, and it labels out how many years of experience you have. For each year of experience that you have, you get 10 points credit. For each subject that you've completed or course that you've completed in a certain subject area, you also get points for that. For the CAE, you must have a minimum of 100 points if you do not have that degree at this point. For the RES, MAS, and PPS, the total of those points has to reach 70, so you are still able to attain the designation. So there again, the Professional Designation Subcommittee has really taken this on and sees the importance of allowing everyone and trying to be as inclusive as we can to let everyone, as they progress through their career, to attain these designations. It's kind of like Donna said at the onset, she didn't plan on being in this profession, and some folks who get into it, obviously, they have not. And they may not have gotten that degree earlier. This right here just really opens the door for a lot more folks, and so we're proud to have these different alternatives. So with that said, I will turn it over to Mr. Tracy Drake.
Thank you, Brad. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. My name is Tracy Drake. I'm the Assistant Property Appraiser for Clay County, Florida, where I've worked since 1993. Been a member of IAAO since 1998 and a member of the Professional Designation Subcommittee since 2014, serving as chair in 2016 and 17. I hold the CAE, the RES, the AAS, and the ASA Real Property Mass Appraisal General Designation from the American Society of Appraisers. I'm an advisor, IAAO advisor for many years for IAAO. I also hold the State Certified General Real Estate Appraiser's license in Florida. I'm currently the president of the Florida chapter of IAAO and the chair of Florida's Professional Designation Committee. I hope that we have some Florida members in attendance on this webinar. For those that will attend the IAAO annual conference in a few weeks in Las Vegas, I'll be hosting a roundtable discussion on IAAO designations, so I hope to see you there. Just a few comments. When I was first appointed to the PDS a few years back, I noticed that the IAAO rules were fairly restrictive. And as Brad just mentioned, over the past 2 years or so, we have been able to draft some procedural rules that have allowed for educational equivalencies and for degree alternatives that we are most proud of. My portion of the presentation, and I'm also seeing some questions at the bottom, or questions that I'll try to address as well, so keep those coming. The educational equivalencies, we determined as a PDS that there were individuals, that there were candidates for designation that clearly through other associations had demonstrated their ability to understand and test through single property methods. So fortunately we were able to draft those rules that allowed for the equivalencies for specific appraisal associations, and the intent of these rules is to recognize and offer equivalencies for candidates who have obtained that similar education. Understand going into this that when we draft rules, not everybody agrees with us drafting the rules. There are some people that want us to be more inclusive and some like the restrictive ways of the past. So some of these rules that have been written over the past 2 years were kind of a one step forward way to try to open the door, as you will. So understand that as we meet twice a year as a committee, and it's our intention that in October that we'll meet again, and that we have every intention of reviewing the rules and expanding those and as we can. So Don't be dismayed if you're seeing rules right now that you don't think are expansive enough. We understand. We hear the complaints or the comments that are sent to Gerund. We identify those, and we will do our best to try to draft rules that will address those. Anyway, enough of my rambling. So the equivalencies, the MAI to the CAE, once again, we had to write rules that were kind of an easy way to get the rules passed, if you will. So what all of these rules do, or the equivalencies do, is that they identify, once again, the single property nature of the other designations. So what that leaves is that all of the mass appraisal concepts that IAAO teaches typically are not taught by other associations. So what we've identified is what's the single property education that's been taught through other associations. We're doing our best to give equivalencies there, but the single or the mass appraisal will still have to be tested and demonstrated for IAAO's purposes. So if we talk about the MAI to the CAE, once again, like I stated, that basically what you're seeing here is that you would receive credit for the coursework that is single property in nature to include use PAP. Also, one of the big rules, if you will, that I like is that there's now waivers available for demonstration appraisal reports. So as an MAI candidate, and I know the rules may currently state that you have to submit your report for review, that's not the case. So basically, if you have an MAI and you can prove through holding that designation, then you would get waiver for your demonstration appraisal report, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, send me a question. I'll try to clarify that. So the SRA, also from the Appraisal Institute, you would once again get credit for the single property, courses, use PAP, and your residential demonstration appraisal report. There was a question I'll touch on because of the Appraisal Institute. There was a question, I guess it's out of Canada, that was a question about, let me see if I can get to that really quick, but it referred to the Sauder School of Business or the Appraisal Institute of Canada. The Appraisal Institute of Canada is one of the educational equivalencies that we will address at Leadership Days in October. So that is on our hit list of things to do. The American Society of Appraisers is another association that we have identified that offers education that we believe is similar to that of IAAO. So you have the CAE to the Ad valorem Mass Appraisal General, which is their real property designation. You would receive credit for the courses that are single property in nature, use PAP, and then waiver for the demonstration reports. The next one is the CAE to Ad valorem Mass Appraisal Residential. Once again, single property courses to include 300, and you would also receive waivers for your demonstration report. So effectively, with the MAI, the SRA, the American Society of Appraiser designations, as you can see, the common thread there, all single property coursework, demonstration reports, you would receive equivalency or waiver. You would have to test through any coursework or requirements that would be relevant to mass appraisal. Then we get into the UBC. The IAAO's had a long-standing relationship with the UBC. And you can see here for the UBC, candidates who have completed the certificate program in real estate assessment, the diploma program in urban land economics, and the Bachelor of Business in Real Estate, the degree, you would receive credit for all IAAO educational courses towards the CAE and the RES programs. Once again, you get credit for all of the courses for the CAE and the RES. And then there are waivers available for the demonstration appraisal reports depending on which reports were written through the UBC. And then obviously maintaining the designations, you have a 5-year cycle. And within that 5-year cycle, there are certain requirements as far as the use PAP updates, 70 hours of continuing education credit. You have to retake or recertify the ethics IAAO 171, and once again, all that must be done within a 5-year cycle. Just kind of touching on a question, there was a question about the RES. Is IAAO Course 201 no longer required for the RES? The answer to that is yes. You must have the land course if you are taking the case study exam. So if you're taking the case study exam for the RES, then you must also have Course 201. I'm scrolling through the questions, so just bear with me. There was another question that was asked about the PPS designation. So I hope that person's still out there. It says, I've completed the education experience requirements for the PPS. However, I've missed the 5-year window for application and testing due to issues beyond my control. Can I request an extension? Understand this. There is no sunset or expiration date on your coursework. Although you do have a 5-year candidacy time period, if you took Course 1 15 years ago, you would still receive credit for Course 1 today. So although your candidacy may expire, yes, you can extend the candidacy for 1 year, but if the worst can happen is that you had to reapply for candidacy, your coursework would still be valid. Hopefully that answers your question. With that, somebody asked the question, can someone please explain what to expect from the 8-hour case study and the 4-hour comprehensive exam? That really kind of depends on which designation you're talking about. The case studies are more detailed. They're more thorough. They're deeper in the testing of knowledge. If this helps, I often tell people that I'm advising that the case study, as you take IAAO coursework, if you think about an IAAO week, you have an instructor that teaches you from Monday through Thursday. There are things within that material that they just can't get real deep into. So they kind of give you a general understanding so you have the ability to understand the test on Friday. Well, when you get to a case study exam, typically the things that were more detailed, the deeper things that may not have been as explained during a week course, those are the things you can almost anticipate to be on a case study because they're testing beyond what you would learn in a week-long course. So most case study exams, these 8-hour exams, are very thorough, they're very detailed, and they are a true test of your ability to understand the material. The 4-hour comprehensive exam, obviously because it's half the time, tends to be back to being more theoretical, like similar to your end-of-course exams that you would take during your week-long courses. So not that one is any easier than the other, but the case study, once again, is a more detailed, thorough test of your knowledge, whereas the 4-hour exam is a little bit more theoretical. I think we're all available to answer any kind of questions, but with that, I will turn this back over to Daniel. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. We have a great amount of questions here, so we can start going down the list. What I can do is I'll start listing some of the questions, and for any of the panelists who feel they are best suited to answer that, feel free to chime in. So we'll go down the list here. Some of these may be a little repetitive, but we'll make sure we cover all the bases as we have some time. So the first question is, I am an MAI, and they want to know if they still need to do the residential appraisal report or case study to obtain the CAE designation.
Well, this is Gerund. I'm Designation Program Manager. The answer to that is yes. For the CAE, you need to demonstrate your knowledge of both residential and commercial. And through earning your MAI, you've demonstrated to the Appraisal Institute on the commercial side, but to also hold your CAE, you need to go through the demonstration of your knowledge for the residential project as well.
All right. Thank you, Gerund. Okay. Our next question is, and this will pertain to Canadian candidacies. Would you be able to explain how the appraisal courses provided in Canada compared to the courses in the U.S., specific to the Sauder School of Business or Appraisal Institute of Canada?
Daniel, this is Tracy. Like I mentioned on this question, the Appraisal Institute courses has been one of the associations that have been kind of presented us for us to look into as far as offering educational equivalency. So it would be difficult to answer the question as far as I'm concerned now, but it will be something that we look into in October during Leadership Days.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tracy. Our next question is on the 5-year requirement, and they ask that they have taken IAAO courses over 5 years ago, but have not completed all course requirements and or test or projects. Would they have to start over on the IAAO classes to restart the 5-year clock?
Well, that's a nuts and bolts question, so this is Gerund. I'll take that one again. So, no. So, I guess to clarify, you can take your coursework at any point throughout your career, and there used to be, I guess, a sunset on those courses of 10 years, but even that does not exist anymore. So if you took course 1 back in 1985, you could still apply it towards the designation requirements. Is it best to maybe get updates since the exams have been rewritten since then? It might be yes, but technically you can still apply it towards the requirements. The 5-year window only pertains to once you apply for candidacy. So you submit your candidacy application and become an enrolled candidate, then your 5-year clock starts ticking, and you have 5 years to complete the requirements that way. Often what candidates do, especially in more remote or rural areas where we don't have a lot of active courses going on, is that they will complete their coursework outside of candidacy to make sure they can get them all completed while not counting against that 5-year candidacy clock. And then once they have all or nearly all their courses completed, then they'll send in the application, apply for candidacy, finish out any remaining coursework, do their demonstration of knowledge project, and their final exam.
Awesome. Thank you, Gerund. Moving down our list here, we have a question asking about the use PAP requirement in Canadian jurisdictions, and if there's an equivalency that balances that out, or if the use PAP specific is something that needs to be taken.
Now, this is Tracy. The way the rules are written is that a candidate outside of the United States, or that, let me start back. Residents of the United States are required to take use PAP. Residents outside of the United States can take and provide completion of a jurisdictional standard. Whatever appraisal standard governs that jurisdiction, they can submit that to IAAO and they would get credit in lieu of use PAP. But if you're inside the United States, it's use PAP. Outside, we'll take the equivalent.
All right, thank you, Tracy. The next question is, for those in government, and this individual works in state government, for example, would a candidate need to draft a demo report on a made-up scenario or company?
This is Tracy again. I think that's one of those, it depends on the designation. Obviously, a demo report is arguably one of the most difficult components to achieving a designation. So my advice, like Gerund gave advice about anybody that's considering being a candidate, get your education completed first, then become a candidate, because your 5 years starts clocking at that point. So my advice, if you're talking about somebody that's pursuing an RES, my advice to you would be take the case study. Don't write a demo. Now, if we're talking about the CAE, then obviously a demo report would be required because there's 2 projects, a residential and a commercial. So if you're pursuing a CAE, then my advice to you would be write the residential demo, take the commercial case study, because it's, in my opinion, easier to write a residential appraisal report than it is a commercial appraisal report. So with this person being in state government, there's no exception if you're pursuing the CAE. You're going to have to write a demo. So my advice would be is to write the residential demo. The residential demo, and I always point people to the guide. Our guide on demonstration appraisal report writing, that's the best way to get you through it, because that's also what the graders are going to use to grade. There are certain hypotheticals that are allowed within that, but to say that the property in and of itself being hypothetical, that's not allowed.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Our next question asks, if you take the case study exam for the RES and happen to not pass the first time, can you then switch over to the report option instead?
This is Gerund. I'll go fast. Yes. Try that out a little bit. Yeah, you have 2 attempts at each, and they're not exclusive of each other. So if you decide you took the exam and went that direction and decide that's not for you, that's not the environment for you, and rather write the report, then yes, and that you can do so, and that wouldn't count against you, and you still have 2 attempts to submit a successful report as well. So it doesn't count against your attempts for report writing either.
All right, thank you, Gerund. Our next question is about AI classes, and they're asking if credit is available for individual AI classes such as 310 or 510, basic and advanced income.
This is Tracy. Currently, like I said in the beginning of my part of the presentation, is that the way that the rules are written and the way that they are written states that if you hold the MAI or the SRA, then you get credit for coursework. Currently, whether it's for a state or just an association course, currently there is no equivalent. That doesn't mean that that won't happen in the future, but the question is credit available for individual classes? At this point, that answer is no, but keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully that's something that we can cross in the future.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Our next question asks if you have to have the coursework done before you can do the report work for the MAS. And I have confirmation here from Gerund that you do not have to finish all of your coursework before you begin the report. Our next question is asking for a main difference between the AAS designation and the RES designation.
This is Tracy. Both, I would say the AAS is a very well-rounded designation. It's more of an administrative. I'm a manager in an assessment office. It's going to ask you questions, income questions. It's going to ask you planning questions, budget questions, trending, statistical questions. It's all those courses that you would take, 400, 402, 300. That's going to be the bulk of the designation, and I would say that's a good designation for somebody that's a manager in an assessment office. The RES is a little more specific. It is specific in the way the courses and the testing is specific to a residential appraiser. So I guess choose which one is most applicable to you, but the RES, like the CAE, is very specific in the type of people or the type of in the profession that they would need that. So once again, the RES, CAE are specific. The AAS is more of a rounded, more manager and assessment office.
Wonderful. Our next question pertains to the MAS as well, so this might be directed for you, Tracy. They asked if you can explain more about the narrative appraisal report for the MAS designation.
They've asked me the question I can't answer. The MAS, I'm not that familiar with the demo report. Like Paul said, that you have 3 options. You can write it on a mass appraisal. There is a guide and a template that can be used to assist the candidate in writing that report. So I would refer them to the guide and to the template. Once again, with our relationship with the UBC, they're going to assist us with getting this off the ground. They're reviewing the guide and the template to make sure all this is going to work, which we have no reason to believe that it won't. But in writing that, my advice to them would be look to the guide on the mass appraisal report, and that's going to give them the best chance to pass.
All right, thanks. Our next question is asking for clarification on the USPAP requirements. And they ask, does USPAP need to be taken through IAAO, or can I use the 15-hour USPAP class I took for my state license?
And that answer is that USPAP does not need to be taken through IAAO. We'd like that you do so, but if it's not available and you take it from another provider, you can do so as long as that offering was compliant with the Appraisal Foundation requirements. And I believe that's a approved instructor and something else, but the provider should be able to tell you if they're TAP approved.
Great, thank you, Gerund. Our next question is in reference to the bachelor degree requirements, and they're asking for the alternative to the bachelor's degree. It appears that you must have some college experience. They are asking about points for experience, and it appears that only 10 are available. And they want to know if this is correct and what balance that is, because they have a year of college and 20 years experience on the local and state level. So if someone can shed some light on the bachelor degree requirement equivalences, that would be awesome.
Yes, this is Brad. A minimum of 10 years of experience can be used, for instance, for the CAE designation. No college is required. You would have to have a high school diploma. You can use any combination of education experience. So if you had some college, then you certainly could use that as a way to get to that 100 points that are required. There again, two different ways, but yeah, so no college is absolutely necessary. If you had 10 years of experience, then that would definitely qualify you to become a candidate for the CAE designation, and 7 for the RES, AAS, and MAS.
Awesome, thank you. Love the questions, keep them coming in. Again, a reminder, as we still have a few minutes here to do some questions, but if yours doesn't get answered today, feel free to shoot a reply to the follow-up email, and we'll try to get those answered for you. But we still have some time for some more, so we'll keep trucking away. Our next question is, how do we order the last 2 exams, for example, the PPS, and are they taken in any order?
All right, this is Gerund, and I'll take that one. On your exams, the case study always comes before the master exam. So all the requirements that lead up to that final exam have to be in place before you can apply for the master exam. So just as order of things go, everything from demonstrating your experience, the degree requirement, your coursework, and your case study exam or demo report, all those need to be satisfied before you can apply to sit for the master or comprehensive exam. As far as how to do so, you can do that through us here in the office. The forms to do that are available on the IAAO website. If you go to our main page, under the Education tab along the top, on the drop-down, you'll see Professional Designations to go to the Designations page. And then you want to look along the right-hand side. It has a lot of links there on the right-hand side to get you to helpful items. And one of those helpful items is a link to candidate exam forms. And to apply for the exams, it actually takes 2 forms. One's the application to sit for and pay for the exam, and the other form you fill out is a proctor request form, and that you fill out with your proctor to set the proctor's name, exam location, and of course the important part is where to ship your exam to.
All right, thank you, Gerund. Our next question is asking about, they said they heard we are coming out with a new way to complete the demo report, and they're referring to where the candidate is supplied all the information, sales, rental information, etc., to write the report. Is this going to happen anytime soon?
This is Tracy. I'll take this one. Part of our conversation with the UBC began with the MAS designation, and we realized that there are jurisdictions across the world, really, that data may not be available to the candidate. So whether you're writing an MAS report, CAE, or an RES report, our intention is that we're hoping that through our relationship with the UBC that we can develop data sets that are large enough that we can provide that data set to the candidate. The candidate can then use that data set, and within that data set, all the information that you would ever need, good and bad, to complete a demonstration appraisal report will be contained within that. So hopefully that will solve the problem of jurisdictions that have limited sales or non-disclosure states or what have you, but that's an avenue that we are pursuing, that we can provide the data set to the candidate if that's the path that they want to choose.
All right, thank you, Tracy. So as we near the end of this presentation, we'll wrap up a couple things, and one of them being a lot of information regarding the MAS designation.
All right. So one question that came through that's very important is, now the MAS is available to apply for candidacy, where do you find that form? Once again, that's on our website, same spot I just directed to a few minutes ago. So if you go to the Professional Designations page on our IAAO website, along the right-hand side, there's the helpful links. I think they're called candidate quick links. And the top 1 or 2 links under that is the candidacy application. And you can download it from there, complete it, and submit it back in to apply for candidacy. I also wanted to cover our kind of ending here that if you're considering embarking on designation, you're not alone. That's what we're here for, to help you on your journey, because what we do want to see are more designated members. The folks on today, there's actually 6 members of the committee, 4 with us today, are here to help with your questions and whatnot as you see them at conference, or as you email questions to me that I can't answer. I always send them all into the PDF. So they're to answer your questions. Your more direct kind of ground contact is your professional designation advisor, your PDA, and that is a person that is a designated member already, that's been through the process, has been through being a candidate, and is now a designee, and they're assigned to you to help you with questions along the way of earning a designation. Then, of course, there's lots to find on our website, and you can always email me, which you can find also on the website, to ask questions and get guidance in that way. Those information there appears on your screen of how to reach us here in the office.
All right, thank you, Gerund. As we wrap up today, again, if there are any questions that snuck by, we didn't get answered for you, we apologize. We tried to get as many in as possible. As those questions continue to come in or come to mind after today's conclusion of this presentation, go ahead and send that follow-up email to either, as you see there, the designations@IAAO.org, or just directly to the follow-up email that you received with information about this. Again, this presentation will be recorded and posted to our YouTube account as well as your personal accounts on our website. A big thank you to Tracy, Brad, Paul, and Donna today, and thank you to all of our listeners for taking time out of your day and join us as we continue this great webinar campaign of 2017. For additional education in the appraisal industry, head on over to esri.com, that's ESRI.com, for their upcoming webinar tomorrow, September 7th, Assessors Engaging Your Constituents. And if you liked today's webinar, please join us again on October 18th as a panel of experts present Update on Outdoor Advertising Valuation and Tax Assessments. We look forward to having you with us. And one big announcement for anyone joining us at conference later this month, come stop by our IAAO Experience booth. It'll be located at registration, so come on by and ask questions about designations, membership, and more. As always, it has been a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon, and we look forward to having you back in the near future. From everyone here at IAAO, have a great day.